But first, it's New Year's Eve, which means fireworks, celebrations, and a message from the Prime Minister. I thought we'd get it out of the way early. Here he is.
Happy New Year, Australia. I hope you've had a chance to relax and celebrate with loved ones and friends. For those who have worked through the break, from our Australian Defence Force to emergency service and health workers, to people in hospitality and retail, thank you for the sacrifices that you've made. We live in the greatest country in the world, and in the year ahead, with new determination and renewed optimism, we can build an even stronger Australia together. I wish you all a safe, happy and prosperous 2025.
Is it me, or is it getting harder to know what's real and what's satire? The Prime Minister boasts that Australia is the greatest country in the world. Is that because of or in spite of the Albanese Government? That's a rhetorical question, obviously. And when the PM says we should approach 2025 with renewed optimism, I can only assume he's referring to the upcoming election, unless there's another off-ramp we don't know about. As for his wishes for a prosperous 2025, well, I'm wishing for a Ferrari. We were promised a plan. Instead, we got the worst decline in living standards since the 1950s. Apparently, economies don't run on wishes. The government's own statistics reveal Australian living standards have fallen more than in any other OECD country, with the hit to households now worse than almost all comparable developed nations. And there's zero evidence to suggest any change of direction. Despite the hoo-ha around New Year's, there's nothing magical about the clock striking midnight. When we awake tomorrow, interest rates will still be high, the cost of living will still hurt, housing will still be scarce, blackouts will still be threatened, social cohesion will still be a problem, and Jim Chalmers will still not have a clue. The PM took to Twitter to reflect on the year he'd had. He wrote, and I quote, "That's a wrap on 2024. Tax cuts, energy bill relief, cheaper childcare, expanding bulk billing, cheaper medicines, cutting student debt. 2024 has had it all." Yeah, it sure has. Changes to stage 3 tax cuts, well, they were a lie. Energy bill relief was to cover for another lie, that power prices would go down, and who pays for energy bill relief? We do. If bulk billing has been expanded, it certainly hasn't been expanded where I live. You've got more chance of finding a house to rent than a doctor who bulk bills. Cheaper childcare, well, that's an inflationary budget item paid for by the taxpayer. And as for cutting student debt, well, we got to pay for that too. I still don't understand how having us pay off the debt of strangers who knowingly took on a debt for service is something to brag about. The entire list of 6 achievements, 6, doesn't amount to much more than increased government spending, which ensures inflation remains high, which keeps interest rates high, which affects cost of living, which is why the wish for a prosperous new year rings a little hollow from this PM. It's not all doom and gloom, though. The opposition leader, who we were told just a few years ago was unelectable, is increasingly sounding like he might be a Prime Minister.
I'm sure that for many of you, you're reflecting on the year that's been, including on those events at home and abroad which are etched in our national consciousness. With the new year, Australians will also be thinking about their aspirations and hopes for 2025. And not just for yourselves and for your families, but for our nation too. 2025, of course, is a federal election year, and Australians will again exercise the greatest gift democracy affords, the privilege of having a say in determining the future of our great country.
As Peter Dutton says, the new year will offer Australians a choice. Our future prosperity will depend less on wishes and much more on making the right choice when that time comes.